All right, Miles, let's talk Oklahoma Sooners here for a little bit. This is a team that we like talking about. Unfortunately, the first season under Venables didn't work out the way a lot of Sooner fans hoped. But we have a report and some news that shows that everything with Oklahoma right now is trending in the right direction. And in fact, they're doing a lot better than a lot of their opponents in the way many people thought they would be doing.
Yeah, Nick, a lot of big signings, a lot of big recruits, some big time transfers for Oklahoma. And through all of that, I got to ask the Sooners fans in the comments below, what do you think the most impactful signing or recruit for this Oklahoma team was? Who do you think is going to be the biggest impact, or even who's just your favorite signing for this team? Let us know in the comments below. But Nick, what else is going on for Oklahoma?
So obviously, as the recruiting season and transfer season is wrapping up, look, there'll be some late signings and late transfers, but the vast majority of it is done now. It's complete now. We can take a step back and see what programs really added to the repertoire and look a lot better for the future with everything they did in the recruiting game and transfer game the last few months. And one of the things that's interesting when you look at the top of the list, according to 247sports.com, obviously you got Alabama 1, Georgia 2, and Texas is 3. Those guys are generally at the top of the list. But the next guy in line, when you look at those 3 programs, you think, oh, the next line, it's Ohio State, right? They do a great job. Or it's one of these up and coming programs. It's a Florida State. They're in Florida, right? It's the U. They're in Miami. Is it a Michigan? They're a blue blood. Is it a Southern Cal under Lincoln Riley? Oh, he's changing the game recruiting. Is it A&M? Jimbo Fisher can always recruit. Is it, Tennessee? They're up and coming too. They've always been able to recruit as well. Is it one of those guys? Is it Notre Dame, a classic blue blood? Is it one of Nebraska, new head coach? Are they recruiting better? No. Number 4 in the country at the recruiting rankings is Oklahoma, right? And it just goes to show that, people were thinking like, oh, after last year, is this the beginning of the end of the run of dominance of Oklahoma? It's like, no, it wasn't. Yes, it was a bump in the road. But let's be honest. If you look at the situation, anytime your offensive play caller changes, anytime you lose your first and second best quarterbacks, people forget that Caleb Williams left and Spencer Rattler left. Like they were dealing with their third best ideal quarterback going into the season. And that's no program is going to survive in that situation. And you were also learning a new defense, new scheme, a lot of issues there. So again, it was going to be a rebuilding year, a kind of going through some bumps and bruises year. Looking back on it, it made sense how the year turned out. And the fact, when I look at the recruiting ranks right now, Oklahoma, number 4 in the country, ahead of Ohio State, ahead of LSU, ahead of Miami, ahead of Oregon, ahead of Notre Dame, ahead of Tennessee, ahead of all of these programs that everyone is saying, hey, these other programs are trending in the right direction. They're national powers. Well, Miles, Oklahoma is ahead of those guys. So it looks like Oklahoma will be returning to being a national power again very shortly.
Yeah, Nick, to me, the recruiting is a no-brainer as to why they're so high. It's got to be the wagon. People see the wagon charge out on the field during the games. That's a big-time recruiting prop. I think it's a great one. But no, Nick, seriously, another big-time recruitment aspect for Oklahoma. We've heard the rumbles all season long. When is Oklahoma and Texas going to make the move to the SEC? And Nick, just last week, we got the news that the deals have been struck. July 2024, they are moving to the SEC. So this is pretty big. Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12, moving over to the SEC. This would be big for recruiting because going against top flight talent all the time is going to make your tape look a lot better. So I think this is a pretty big one. And Nick, all in all they owe is $100 million combined with Texas to the Big 12 to help, kind of offset the cost from everything. But Nick, I think this is a big one. I think a lot of guys are going to want to play in the SEC because it does just mean more. It means a little bit more to be in the SEC. I think this will be big time for Oklahoma. Do you think this is a pretty big deal for them?
I think it's a big deal for Oklahoma, and I think it's a little bit of a warning shot looking at these recruiting rankings for some of these teams currently in the SEC that think Oklahoma and Texas are going to be pushovers, right? Because if you look at the teams, strictly Oklahoma, that are out recruiting, it's LSU, it's Tennessee, it's Florida, it's A&M, it's Auburn, it's South Carolina, right? You go down the list, right? It's Arkansas, it's Mississippi State, it's Ole Miss, right? Oklahoma is beating them in the recruiting game, and Oklahoma really hasn't had a deep chance to commit to recruiting at a high level in the Southeast. I'm not saying Oklahoma is going to go in there and win the Southeast, but it's not too much to say that they're not going to be able to pick off a recruit here, a recruit there, while also continuing to dominate nationally and locally the way they currently do now. So everyone in the SEC, not named Alabama and Georgia because they're kind of in a different class, they should be terrified that Oklahoma has this ability to recruit and continues to grow the way they've been doing under Venables in the recruiting department and the transfer department as well. Because to me, that shows once they move over to the SEC, they're not going to be a pushover. Sure, there's going to be some bumps and bruises as they get recalibrated to a new schedule, but they're going to be a force. This isn't going to be A&M and Missouri joining the SEC. I mean, this is going to be a true flight blue blood that has the ability to out-recruit and outspend 90% of the schools in the SEC. And I think what we're seeing here out of 247sports.com and all the recruiting rankings is proof that Oklahoma is going to contend, whether it's Big 12 this year or SEC next year and beyond. They're going to be a contender for a very long time.